The third macromolecule are nucleic acids. Ms. Haller already talked about carbohydrates and lipids, and now I'm going to talk about the last two, which are nucleic acids and proteins. Nucleic acids are kind of a big deal because it's your DNA and RNA. Therefore, it's your genetic material. But first, let's talk about which elements make up nucleic acids. Nucleic acids are made up of everything except sulfur. So remember the big six. Schnapps. Everything is here except for sulfur, or S. So schnapp, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and phosphorus. I already mentioned their function. It's your genetic information. So what that means is that DNA and RNA, the N and the A, stand for nucleic acids. So hopefully that's easy for you to remember. But they're going to store your genetic information in a code and then transmit it or pass it along, and that information is going to be read and made into proteins, which are the last macromolecule that we'll get right into. Nucleic acids and protein synthesis both have their own chapters later on in the year that we'll get to, so we're just going to cover the basis here. Now, as I mentioned, nucleic acids are your DNA and RNA. It's your genetic information, and you find DNA in your cell's nucleus, and what's going to happen is that it will turn or be made into RNA, and then RNA is made into proteins. So DNA is going to be made into RNA, and RNA is going to be made into protein, and that process is called protein synthesis that we will detail later in the year. But it's going to make your proteins, and proteins make up all your traits and make you the organism that you are with all the traits that you have. Every organism on the planet, their traits are made from nucleic acids. So let's look at the structure a little bit. The monomer of a nucleic acid is something called a nucleotide. Now, nucleotides they look kind of complex, but they're simpler than they seem. A nucleotide has three major parts. The first part is called a phosphate group, and what that means, it's a phosphorus with 4 oxygens. And this is going to be permanent, so it does not change between each nucleotide. Other parts of the nucleotide could vary a little bit, but the phosphate group will never change. The second part is called a pentose sugar. Sometimes we just call it a sugar. Pentose means it has 5 carbons, or it's a 5-sided shape. So it's in the shape of a pentagon. So that is why we call it a pentose sugar. There's 2 types of pentose sugars. One is called deoxyribose, and one is called ribose. There are actually 2 types of monosaccharides, which Ms. Haller talked about in the carb section. So you actually have sugar that makes up your DNA and RNA. The last part of a nucleotide is called a nitrogen base. Its full name is called a nitrogenous base, and that's a fancy term for it has nitrogen. So sometimes that's just why we call it a nitrogen base. Even simpler, usually we just shorten it to base. So a phosphate, a sugar, and a base. The 3 parts of a nucleotide. And so here is one nucleotide with the phosphate group, the sugar, and the nitrogen base. So those 3 parts hooked together makes up one nucleotide. The bottom part shows the same thing as the top picture, but the complex, more detailed versions of each of those molecules with all their atoms, the nitrogen, the carbons, the oxygens, etc. And so this is kind of what it looks like, but we're going to use a simpler model of it instead, just because it's simpler. Now, one thing I want to mention is that the sugar has 2 different things it could be. So this could either be a deoxyribose or a ribose, depending if it's DNA or RNA. And the other thing that could vary is the base. So there's actually 5 different bases, and we use letters to abbreviate their names. So A for adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine, and uracil. We'll learn those later in the year. But A, T, C, G, and U are the bases, and what that means is that this base up here in the green could be one of those 5. And so that's the bases, and that's the general structure of a nucleotide. And so if we look at this, we have our structures again. So in the yellow box, this is one nucleotide, the phosphate, the sugar, and the base. Here's another nucleotide right here with the phosphate, the sugar, and the base, which is hooked to another phosphate, sugar, and base. So 3rd nucleotide, 4th nucleotide, phosphate, sugar, base. And the A stands for adenine here, which is actually that structure. The G stands for guanine, etc. So they can change a little bit. But overall, monomers get hooked into polymers. And so let's look at what that means. When we start to hook these nucleotides into long chains of nucleotides, that creates a polymer. There's two polymers for nucleic acids, and they consist of DNA and RNA. Sometimes we call them polynucleotides, but that word's not used a lot. We're just going to call them DNA and RNA are the polymers. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, and if it has the deoxyribo sugar in it, that's what makes it DNA. The ribo sugar it makes up RNA, and that's called ribonucleic acid. Notice that nucleic acid are in both the long names of DNA and RNA. And the first part of the long name tells us what sugar it is. So deoxyribonucleic acid and ribonucleic acid. If you look at the picture, DNA and RNA has some slight differences. The first major difference is double-stranded or double helix is DNA, and RNA is single-stranded. Another difference is the sugars that I already mentioned, deoxyribose in DNA and ribose in RNA. And the third difference are the bases, or those letters. So there's only certain 4 letters that we could find in DNA, which include A's, T's, C's, and G's. But the letters differ by 1 in RNA because they have U's instead of T's. And again, we'll detail that in the DNA chapter. But don't forget, the bottom of your notes, in order to get a polymer, we build by dehydration synthesis. We remove water to put together. But to break apart anything, including DNA and RNA, which your body does need to do, it's called hydrolysis. You add the water back in to break things apart. Let's move on into proteins. So proteins are made out of everything except phosphorus now. So CHONS would be the acronym to help you remember it. And proteins do everything. Like proteins are the biggest deal of all because they make up pretty much everything inside your body. So proteins they build things structurally, they help you move like in your muscles, they help your immune system fight off things like viruses or bacteria with the help of things like antibodies, which are proteins. You have hormones, which are chemicals that go in your blood and tell different body parts what to do and when. You have enzymes, that is the next part of this chapter. Enzymes speed up chemical reactions. You have buffers, which we talked about. Buffers help maintain whatever pH is necessary. Proteins do everything, and that's just a short list of 6 of the major functions. And examples, you could write down any of these that help you. You don't have to write down the whole list, of course. But as I mentioned, they're going to be enzymes, which we'll talk about, antibodies, which are in your immune system. They make your hair, your skin, your nails, your muscles, your bones, hormones in your body, ligaments, tendons, and outside the human body, other organisms, the spider webs, the exoskeleton, certain parts of the exoskeleton, parts of your cells, they help your cells function. Really, I could go on and on. So proteins are a big deal, and they do everything. So let's look at their structure. Proteins are made from a monomer called an amino acid. And there's 20 different amino acids. And I keep saying this, but we have a whole chapter on proteins and how they're made later on after we talk about DNA and RNA and genetics. And we're going to look at the 20 different types and look how they kind of get hooked together to make a polymer called a polypeptide. So the monomer of a protein is an amino acid, and the polymer of a protein is called a polypeptide. And if you look at the pictures, each one of these individual red circles represents one amino acid. And you could see they have a weird abbreviation in them. That's because there's 20 different types, and they all have their own name. And the first 3 letters just represent part of their name, like glycine, isoleucine, valine, cysteine. They all have names. But you could see that they're hooked up into a long string. And this long, almost beads on a string thing, that's a polymer. And so when we have a chain of amino acids, it's called a polypeptide. And the reason it's called a polypeptide is because the bond that holds them together, so between 2 amino acids right there, this bond is actually called a peptide bond. It's a type of covalent bond that we're not going to really learn about. And because there's so many of these bonds, they call it a polypeptide. That's where the name comes from and why it's not called a polyamino acid. Now, you could have this long chain Now that's not a protein yet, that's just a polypeptide. To get a protein, you actually need a bunch of polypeptides together. So looking at the second picture over here, the first one that's in red, let's pretend that it's this one right here that's also in red. What's going to happen is that these polypeptides fold into crazy shapes, and they use these ribbons to represent them in pictures. And so here's one polypeptide, and then there's a polypeptide in blue and purple and orange and yellow and turquoise and green. So there's like 5 or 6 polypeptides that are all folded all crazy. When you get a bunch of polypeptides together, they will actually connect and form this glob of polypeptides that we know as a protein. And then that protein makes all of our traits. And don't forget, polymers are always put together by dehydration synthesis, and they're always broken down by hydrolysis. So to get these amino acids together, we had to do dehydration synthesis. And to build this big protein over here on the right, we had to do dehydration synthesis. If we need to break it down, we have to do hydrolysis. So let's take a look at the structure of an amino acid. So an amino acid has a few different parts or groups. The first is that there's a central carbon, and that carbon grabs onto 4 things around it. There's always going to be a hydrogen on one side, and on another side there's something called an amino group, which is abbreviated NH2. And on the other side there's always going to be a carboxyl group, which is abbreviated COOH. The last part of an amino acid is something called the variable group, and it's represented by letter R. R is not an atom on the periodic table, it's more of a fill in the blank. So that means that there's different things that could go and hang on to the carbon. And remember, there's 20 different amino acids, so that means there's 20 different things that could be in this spot called the R group. And on the bottom, there's 2 of the 20. So this one is alanine. So if this is in that spot, it's called alanine, one of the 20 amino acids. But if this is in the R group, that's called serine, another one of the 20 amino acids. So everything stays the same, the amino group, the carboxyl group, and the hydrogen, but the only thing that could vary is the variable group to be one of the 20. And if we look at all 20 amino acids, is that they change only with that R group. So in this green box, all the dark green show the different R groups and how they change. Whereas what's left over on the side over here, this is the same for every single amino acid. The R group is the only thing that changes. And the 20 amino acids, they just have different categories, whether they're polar or nonpolar or acids or bases. And of the 20, we actually make, I believe, 9 or 11, I get them mixed up, but there's ones that we make in our body and ones that we don't make, so we have to consume them in our food. So the ones that are essential that we eat in our diet are called essential amino acids, and we have to get them from the food that we eat. But it's essential that we do, or else we can't make our proteins, because we need all 20. But our body does produce about half of them, and the ones that we already make are called non-essential because our body makes them, and it's not essential that we eat them in our diet, although we do. So the last few things about proteins is that when we have, again, our polypeptides, so each one of these circles is an amino acid, the long chain of them is called a polypeptide, and then what they do is they fold and get together with other polypeptides to make these things, which is a protein. So this is an actual protein, which is many polypeptides put together. And then to get to the protein, this, the polypeptide, so this is a polypeptide. Polypeptides have to go through a folding process to get to the protein. So that means that they first start off as a chain, and then they kind of bend or twist into a helix, and then they kind of fold on top of each other, and then they get together with other polypeptides that have done the same thing and make this big clump of polypeptides that we call a protein. And so they start, the first structure is called the primary structure. When they start to fold, it's called the secondary structure. When they fold into this three-dimensional conglomeration, it's called the tertiary structure. And then when they get together with other ones, it's called quaternary structure, and that's where the protein is actually typically finishing up being made. So proteins have to fold into a specific 3D shape. So these are the last few things on your notes. A protein is 2 or more polypeptides folded and coiled together into a specific shape. And that shape that they fold into, that structure or shape, determines what that protein is and what it does. So in your body, remember, proteins do everything, and the job that they do is determined by how they fold, which is determined by what amino acids that they're made up of. Now, sometimes proteins could get messed up, and we call this getting messed up denaturing, or becoming denatured, or denaturation. So when a protein is denatured, what that means is that its structure or shape unravels and unfolds. And when it unravels and unfolds, what happens is it can't do its job anymore. You actually see this happen sometimes. So if you ever cooked egg before, so you had an egg in a pan, usually the egg white is a clear color, but as you cook it, it turns white. You're actually watching physical denaturation of that egg white, going from that clear to the white. That's denaturation of the egg protein. And so we not only can we mess up protein structure by temperature changes, but we could also change the pH. So we could, if it's exposed to an acid or a base when it's not supposed to be, that can mess up its shape too. And exposing it to heavy metals, think of things like gold or lead or any of those heavy transitional metals on the periodic table, those things could actually mess up the shape of proteins, which is why things like mercury is not good that you're exposed to, because it messes up your proteins and makes them not work in your body, and that's called denaturation. So proteins have different structures, and in science we use these ribbon-like things to represent their crazy different shapes. So this one over here, this is called DNA polymerase, and this one actually helps copy your DNA to get more DNA. Every time your cells will do mitosis and divide, we need more DNA, and so DNA polymerase is essential. And if this protein isn't shaped just like that, it doesn't work, and your cells can't divide. This one is called hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is found in your blood. It's a protein, and it helps carry iron around. And iron helps carry oxygen too, so it's vital in your blood. And if it's denatured by any means, what will happen is that it doesn't work. This one is called human tumor necrosis factor, and what this protein does is actually kills cancerous cells. So they try to do research on this one to help with cancer research. Insulin helps control blood sugar or blood glucose, and people who are diabetic don't make it or don't make it in the right shape, which is why they're diabetic. And if you get bit by a venomous snake, this is one of the types of venom protein, and those proteins interact with how your cells function and could potentially kill you depending on the type of venom it is. So proteins do everything. They make up everything in your body, and they're made through your nucleic acids. And they're, again, one of the biggest macromolecule there is. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope you learned something. Bye.